Hi everyone, Nicole Bowman here, and I am back with another video. So I want to thank you guys so much for taking a moment to stop by my channel, Live the Light. If you are brand new to the channel, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And for all of the returning subscribers and listeners, thank you for the support, the comments. That really helps the channel to grow and build. So today's video is a continuation of a video that we spoke about last week, which is the passing of the artist and entrepreneur Nipsey Hussle. Last week, I took a moment to do a reading on the soul contract, the soul mission of Nipsey Hussle, the artist and entrepreneur who was unfortunately murdered about a week ago. And at the time, we looked more at his mission, his life, his soul, his purpose. We didn't go too great into detail about the murder and the murderer. And the reasoning behind that is that Spirit really wanted his family, his friends, his fans to have a moment to process, to grieve, to release him and move forward before putting these details out there, so to speak. So this past week, he actually did have his homegoing service at the Staples Center. And after that homegoing service, after the people who loved him really got to release and love and celebrate him, I definitely got the go ahead from Spirit and from Nipsey's energy to talk more in depth about his murder and what we can learn from it and what we can take from this process. And so, one of the biggest things that comes through from his murder, and this is coming from Nipsey, he says mental health and mental health issues are real, and they are especially real in the Black community. They are especially real with descendants of African slaves who come from slavery, who come from a lineage of trauma. A lot of people, and I know it sounds strange that I'm talking about mental health in relation to his murder, because Nipsey, in a lot of respects, was very sane. He was very clear. He knew who he was as a man, but the person who murdered him did not. And what he wants to stress very, very clearly is that while a lot of people have a lot of conspiracy theories floating around about his death and his passing and why he was struck down tragically. The real reason behind his passing was envy, jealousy, and undocumented mental illness. The person who unfortunately took Nipsey Hussle's life was a person who just naturally had some serious mental health issues just in general. And this is also a person who had a sense of entitlement, who had a sense of envy and jealousy, and was very jealous of Nipsey and really jealous of anybody who was successful and able to rise up, and rise up from really negative circumstances and turn a negative into a positive picture. So the individual that took his life, he knew him. The person actually lived in the neighborhood where his store was at, where Nipsey was gunned down. The person had been there on multiple occasions. They'd actually been there when Nipsey had like different openings and things when he would invite the community. That person was in the crowd. Spirit actually literally gave me an image of almost like if you can imagine a grand opening of a store or a big event, outdoor event of a store, and you see this person standing in the crowd. And that individual many times had walked by that street corner. He had been at different events and things that Nipsey had hosted for the community, and he wanted to be in Nipsey's world. He wanted to be in his inner circle. He wanted to have some level of access to him. And what I see is that there was something about Nipsey and there was something about his energy that he just simply was not connected to or attracted to this individual. There was something about the person's energy that felt off to him. And more than anything, it just felt off where you just want to push it away and push back on it, but not look too deeply into it. But really, what happened is that he wanted what Nipsey had, he wanted his life, and he felt offended, he felt disrespected because he felt entitled to the success that Nipsey had, and he felt that Nipsey should give him that or share a piece of that with him without actually really doing any of the work to achieve it. Right. So, this was an individual who not only had this strong sense of entitlement, he was also very delusional. He was very erratic. He was very violent. He was very abusive. And there were some serious mental health issues with the person who gunned him down. And I do sense if the police delve deeper into the background of the person who killed him, and this is a person who was based in LA, lived in LA, lived in that community. If they go more in depth into the person who gunned him down, they will see a history of violence. They will see a history of domestic violence. They will see a history of abuse, misogyny, chauvinism, mental illness. It really, it is all there. And the thing about it that I find very interesting when I tap into Nipsey's energy is that he has already forgiven that person. And to be clear, when I say that, I'm not saying that, if you're listening to this in your life and someone has hurt you, wronged you, attacked you, taken the life of someone you love, that the immediate thing is that you need to forgive that person. So that's not why I'm sharing this. What I'm saying is that Nipsey is already at a space where he sees a bigger picture. He understands who that person is and who they were. And he has chosen to let that go and let them go so that he can ascend, he can grow, and he can also be there on a spiritual level for his friends, family, and fans. So he's released the drama of that person already because he said he had to. He had to in order to evolve. So that's why I'm sharing that with you. But one of the things that comes through about the individual that killed him is like the baseline reason was jealousy, right? And that speaks to jealousy and envy in our world. That speaks to how, if you do not check these emotions that are inside of you, if you do not examine them, if you do not ask yourself why I'm feeling this way, that energy can grow and fester out of control to the point where it wreaks havoc, it causes problems, it causes pain, where it never really needed to. And the other thing I also want to talk about is spirit and the spirit world and how that energy influences this individual. What I see concerning the person who took his life, he did it, as I said before, out of envy, jealousy, and a sense of entitlement. He felt that Nipsey should share what he had with him, and in fact he wanted all the Nipsey had. And so there was a level of delusion where he felt should just have access to things, and if he didn't, he had every right to retaliate. So it really came from that place. It came from a place of pettiness, and it came from a turf war, and it came from this person creating a story and a narrative in their minds. They were fighting for their life, they were fighting for their turf, they were fighting for their community, when in actuality all they were really doing is trying to just satisfy their base desires. And a spirit is saying, though, this is what happens when you grow up in a community where there's violence and there's abuse and there isn't mental health treatment, where you grow up in a community where these things happen and it goes unchecked. That begins to fester, grow, and just get out of control. And so essentially that's what happened. So and I feel like a lot of information is actually going to come out about the person who did attack him and did ultimately offer that level of, I don't know how to say it, because Nipsey is very clear about the fact that person didn't take his life. He says he didn't take my life, he didn't give me my life, God gave me my life, and God took my life away. So Nipsey is very clear about that. So I'll just simply say that person who struck that fatal blow, we'll put it that way. But more information is going to come out in the news media about this individual. There's going to be a lot about his history. He definitely is connected to gang violence and gang culture. But even if he were not in that world, I see that there's a serious mental health issue, emotional issue, a serious sense of entitlement. I also see this as an individual just in general who is influenced by low level dark energies and dark spirits. So that had a lot to do with it too, because you have to understand that there are also dark forces in this universe who want to snuff out the light. Nipsey was, a truth sayer, a truth seeker, and he was a way shower. And there are dark energies in this universe that do not want people to rise up and get to their highest and fullest potential. And Nipsey was all about every man, every woman, every boy, every girl reaching their highest potential and being, that God-given, having that God-given spiritual right and being that God-centered human being. He was all about ensuring that people would be able to do that in their life and in their lifetime. And there are forces in the universe that just don't want that to happen. They don't want humanity to evolve. So oftentimes what they will do is they will influence individuals like the person who attacked him, and sort of influence them and try to snuff out the light and allow the dark to rise. But of course that didn't happen. I mean, we look at his homegoing ceremony, we look at the memorials outside of his store, we look at the people who are inspired by him, we look at the people who are standing up and saying that, that they will ride him and they will ride on, and the marathon continues. So it is clear that that darkness did not win. But his passing, was it connected to Dr. Sebi or a conspiracy with the American government? No, Spirit doesn't say that, and they've never said that. They said it was plain old envy, jealousy, and fear. And these are emotions that we need to check. These are emotions we need to look at. And this goes back as well to, and this is something that Nipsey's Energy says. He says, never underestimate evil. Because there was something about this person who came to him and showed up to his store. Nipsey was a very good judge of character. So he could immediately sense if somebody was off or if they weren't. He could feel that intrinsically in his bones and in his spirit. He was a very, very good judge of character. But one of the things that he does stress is, even in being a good judge of character, he underestimated evil and evil energy. And sometimes we do underestimate evil. We often think evil is just all over the place and reckless and disorganized, but evil can be very intelligent, it can be very strategic, and it can bring people down. And one of the things that he stresses is, if you get a weird feeling, a strange thing, don't underestimate anything. Don't underestimate sometimes the lengths that people may go to, because especially when we're looking at jealousy and envy, that can really take folks to an entirely different place than you ever thought they could, ever thought they could go to. And so one of the things that he's definitely saying is to trust your gut instincts. One of the things I will share, and I wanted to share this earlier, but it's coming through now, so I'll share it. The person who struck that final blow as it relates to him, seemed to have very sociopathic and narcissistic tendencies in his aura, in his energy field. The way that he spoke, the way that he put thoughts together, problem solved, everything about it was very disjointed. And that's what spirit showed me right away. And one of the things that I've noticed in doing my work as a spiritual worker and intuitive is that in my life, I've definitely come across people who I refer to as dark souls. And dark souls for me are people who are sociopaths or narcissists, meaning that if they were to sit down and go to a psychologist, they would get a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. They would get a diagnosis of being a sociopath, meaning that they cannot love, they cannot bond. They do not know how to, and in some cases they just simply do not want to. They are actually wired differently. And when I look at the souls and the auras of people who really this is their predominant state of being, a lot of times what I will see or feel specifically for the sociopaths is nothing. And what I mean by that is, like, if I step into their energy field, I won't feel anything. It'll just kind of be like an abyss. There'll be nothing going on. And the reason why is because these individuals are very empty inside. They're kind of like a black hole. And so they have to fill and take life from other people. They don't know how to create, they only know how to destroy. And it's similar for the narcissist, only their energy has a little bit more emotion attached to it. So typically, if I'm coming in contact with somebody who has narcissistic personality disorder, I'll just find myself very annoyed by their energy. And that's because their energy tends to be very obsessive. It tends to not respect boundaries and so forth. But similar to the sociopath, they can't really create at the end of the day. A lot of times what they have to do is destroy, and so early on in my work as a spiritual worker, and early on just in my life as a girl and as a woman, when I would connect to these types of energy signatures, I would kind of underestimate it and just dismiss them, and just dismiss the energies as strange or weird, and okay, I'm going to stay away from that, but I will be all right. And what I've learned through experience and time, and one of the things that Nipsey was saying is, do not underestimate this energy that can be evil. It's not about making you paranoid or making us enemies of other people, but it is about understanding that when somebody is compelled by dark energies and dark forces, you have no idea the lengths that they will go to and what they are capable of. Because oftentimes, just as you may be compelled by God, these individuals are compelled by a force that is bigger than them. And that force may wreak havoc, And at the end of the day, I see that light and love rule supreme, but there is pain and there is drama and there is negativity and there is darkness in this world. And one of the things that Nipsey says is, like, continue to shine the light, continue to be kind, continue to be loving. But he's also very clear about setting boundaries with people, being clear with people, and don't underestimate. If you see something that feels strange or odd or weird or off, don't underestimate how far that could potentially grow. Nip it in the bud in the beginning, stop it in the beginning so it can't wreak havoc and it can't grow, and you can root that out. But the other thing he says as well is that we each have a purpose, and I fulfill mine, you'll fulfill yours. And we have to understand that oftentimes there is a greater meaning, there's a greater message, and even through a tragedy, even through great pain, a nation, a people can be healed. So in terms of his passing, his murder, that is what I'm receiving. He's very emphatic, though, about the fact that he doesn't want people to dwell on how he died. He wants people to focus on how he lived. And if anything that they could take from his passing is not to underestimate that dark energy. Be aware that this dark energy is in the universe, but it is not going to win. And that's the message. The light wins, the light triumphs, God triumphs, love triumphs. And he's very clear. He says, one love, one people, one creator, and keep moving forward. So I will leave you with that. For readings and more, visit me on the web. There are links in the bottom of the description for immediate readings and for appointment sessions. And also a link in the bottom of the description about soul contracts and Nipsey Hussle. So always remember to live your light, live your bliss, and love yourself. Take care, guys.